Hello everybody, it's great to be with you. I love being in the studio and I love this opportunity to be able to do what I'm doing, and that is put content down for you and I so we can do business better. And I wonder today how you would feel if I was sitting across the table from you having a coffee and ask you, how well are you doing? And I want to share with you today about the whole dynamic of being overwhelmed. I often find with business owners that I work with, one of the dynamics that they express is I don't have anybody to talk to, and it all seems to be such a big, momentous challenge for me to actually wrestle with day by day by day by day. And at times I feel overwhelmed because I run out of time. And people say this to me, struggle with this, and my responsibility, and I love it, is actually helping my clients de-stress, deal with this sense of being overwhelmed, and actually answer that question and work towards a strategy. So I want to ask you to think of the conversations that you have had with yourself, in your own brain, in your own emotions. Questions like, if I only had time, I'm always so busy. There are always so many things to do and never enough time to do them. I'll get to do that once things slow down a bit, and on and on and on. And there's lots of phrases and expressions that we use to tell us those messages that it just seems to be bigger than Ben-Hur, bigger than I ever thought this could ever be. And I'm feeling quite overwhelmed about being able to handle this. I fake it, and I sometimes don't make it, and I wonder, can I really get myself through this? And that's what I want to help us deal with today, in actually understanding that. So firstly, we need to be looking at this dynamic of a reality check. You know, life needs to slow down. I've just been in a situation where I've handed over an organization, and I'm finding myself that there is greater space in my world, and I'm loving the opportunity. It's helping me slow down. It's helping my wife slow down because we were running the organization together, and she stepped away and she's having a couple of months holiday break, refreshing and renewing, and encouraging her, yeah, I don't need to do that much today. Letting her have that reality check that all the busyness of life, all of the important dynamics that seem to flood into our world, that I've got to do this and I've got to do that, I've got to see that person, I've got to be attending that meeting, I've got to make sure this happens. All of that can simply help us be overwhelmed, and we then really struggle. And I want us to think about what we might do in our world to change the dynamic of conversation that's going on inside of us. So I want us to understand the opportunity for us to slow down and have a reality check, because the power of the difficulties we face when we feel overwhelmed is everything is too much, everything is too hard, everything is too difficult. And I love sitting across the room, across the table from my clients, having the conversation with them and helping them see the world with new light. And I want you to imagine you're sitting with me, we're having coffee, we're having a chat, and you're telling me those phrases, it's all too hard, too difficult, too much. I'm feeling like this is getting out of control. I don't know how to get myself back in the game. I'm not really sure if I can handle it. And our conversation is engaging in this process. And what we're about to work on today is to help you understand that there is a way to do it. And I'm going to give you a really simple principle that I'm going to talk about in just a short while about how you can do that. And it's another way to look at what we've discussed previously on some of my other conversations with you about time management. I'm going to give you a really powerful principle that will help activate the very dynamic of your world, and it will change and it will refresh and reframe how you move forward from this moment in time and change your conversation about being overwhelmed. And it's a principle of life that you can apply to many areas of your life if you understand how you can learn to do this with your own time management and what you do with your whole 24 hours, your whole 7 days a week, your whole year, and how you view the whole dynamic of what's going on in your world. Because here's what we face. There are trends and gimmicks all the time that come crashing onto us, and we think if we do this, we do this, we do this, you know, we'll follow that trend and follow that idea. No. I know this. When we keep it simple, you know, the whole KISS principle, keep it simple. When we do less, not more, when we create space to refresh and renew, you know, we were designed to actually have 1 day of rest. That's what we were designed to do. It's a really powerful principle that was put into creation. Really powerful for us to do that. And we often, in the world in which we live, all of that gets taken away from us, and we seem to be out of control and we seem to be overwhelmed. So I want you to really listen up to what this conversation is about for you today. Here's something I want you to imagine. Somebody gave you a gift of 2 hours where you could stop and rest and be renewed, and it was a gift that you had with no expectations or demands on your time how you would use that. And it was a gift to particularly focus on you as a person, so you could do with that time however you wanted to do it. We don't do that to ourselves. We don't give ourselves those kinds of gifts. We give us the gifts of, it's all too hard, I'm too busy, I'm too overwhelmed, I'm too challenged, I've got too many meetings, I've got too many appointments, I've got too many sales to close. And we give us that gift, which then creates this sense of life is overwhelming for us and demanding to us. And we go home at the end of the day, the end of the week, the end of the month, exhausted, and we think nothing is going to change. I've just got to keep running on this merry-go-round, and hopefully one day, maybe I can sell my business and I'll be able to get off this merry-go-round and maybe enjoy life. I want to give you principles where you can do life better and do it now rather than wait burnt out and there's nothing left of you, for your wife, for your children, for your enjoyment. And so it's really important to understand what those dynamics are for you, because when you get a hold of them, what will take place for you is that you will be a different person. And so what are you listening to? Are you listening that I'm too busy, it's too hard, too difficult? Am I listening it's too much? Is it too onerous? What is the conversation that's going on inside of you today? That's the conversation I want to arrest with you and for you, and I want you to take note of that conversation. So often what I'll do is I'll get people to write those expressions down so we can have a conversation about what they're actually meaning and what's going on for them. And I'm wondering what you're talking to. And I love it when I've been with a client for a while and we've worked on some of this with them, and they say to me, instead of being overwhelmed, I don't handle my time well, that I now have confidence. I did that recently with one of my clients, and I gave them my priority log. They turned it into an Excel spreadsheet, color-coded to what they actually was doing that week. And it turned their life around, because he was saying to me that I've worked till 1 and 2 in the morning and it is just overwhelming me and I don't know how to get myself out of that dynamic. And it was just really, really cool to see him understand that he can work 9 to 5, and what he's actually working on was not as intense as he thought, and he now has his evenings free. He loves that fact that when he is working, he's working, and when he's relaxing, he can enjoy his home life, he can enjoy his parents, he can enjoy his social outings, he can enjoy his friends, because he's no longer feeling that sense of being overwhelmed, because rather than the tail wagging the dog, he's now in charge. He knows what he's doing with his time and why he's doing with it. So our conversation has now gone into how can we actually be sharper about what's going on in his world? How can we be more disciplined with what's going on in his world? How can we be more engaged and more analytical and more measured about what's going on in his world? And he's loving that, because that's enabling him to figure out what he really wants to do with his time and what he can actually, and a business tip recently I shared was, what can he actually automate? And he's loving the fact that there's a whole world out there for him to actually engage with automating his business, but also what are the areas he can actually outsource. And he's loving the fact that, hey, I've got this, 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 and this I don't want to do. I don't enjoy doing it. I need to hand that over to somebody else. And it is really, really good fun. And so what that's now doing is not only is working on his business, he's working in his business, he's now working on his business to actually step up. And the goal is that he will employ more people to do what he's been doing, and so he can spend time in the areas that he really enjoys and flourishes in the area of creativity. And he wants to sit in that space so much more. And I love doing that. I've got a client right now I'm thinking of, and he's wrestling with that life is simply overwhelming. And I've given him a strategy, and I've pushed into it a couple of times. And I'm expecting this week he'll make a decision and say, yes, John, I need to do that. Because I know if he'll do that, it will actually help him really pull together the pieces of his world. It will actually put into focus where he should be spending his time and where he should be spending his energy, and give him a very clear outcome strategy of how to implement where he wants to go in his executive leadership and what he wants to do and achieve. And I'm really, really looking forward for him doing that. And I'm really, really anticipating the yes, because I know I put the thought and concern in for him, because he's told me he's overwhelmed, and looking at what is the right strategy. And I love doing this as a coach. I know that there is dynamics that we can do when we engage with people and do an A to B or an A to Z, and take people through a registered process. I love listening to my clients and working out what could be the unique way in which I can help them. So I was with a client today, and what I did was, in thinking about where they were, they needed to really set their culture. And so we've done a workshop today on really for the executives, the CEO and the COO, what is the culture for our organization, because they're about to expand right across the 2/3 of the Southern Hemisphere, and really, really exciting. And they don't want to expand and lose the very dynamic that they've got in their hearts and in their thinking and the way they communicate. They want others to get it. And so I love doing that today. So they now no longer feel overwhelmed that this is going to get away from us. What is going to happen is they're going to be in charge, and they're going to set the culture. So they now have a mission statement, and they now have the values. And I've said to them, yes, you've engaged me to work with you. Yes, you've engaged me to be your workshop facilitator. But here's what we're trying to do in dealing with that dynamic of being overwhelmed, is now you need to articulate that in a little bit more detail. So we've done the mission statement. We've got the values, there's 5 of them. We've got a number of words that we want to do to express what that is. Now articulate that in 1 or 2 sentences, describing that. And they're going to then test that against their board and their chair. And because the board sets with the CEO and CFO the culture for the organization, and then that's tweaked, they can then take that to the world, put it on the website, share about it when they interact. And they said this to me at the end of the session: this is us, and we're going to live it. Because here is a very powerful principle. More things are caught than taught. And they know the power of interacting with everybody that connects to their business. Stakeholders, shareholders, staff, clients, organizations, whoever it might be, they know if people catch it from them, they can actually help them not be as overwhelmed as they are. And they particularly work in the energy sector. And the energy sector today is a very challenging sector and overwhelming many, many people as to what can we do and what should we do. And I'm really pleased for these kinds of interactions that I'm having with my clients to help them de-stress, not be overwhelmed, put a unique strategy in place so they know how to actually move themselves forward. And this is the conversation that you're having, is I'm stuck, I'm overwhelmed, I'm feeling like this is all too much for me, and I'm not sure what I need to do. And I've just recently been thinking about that whole dynamic, and I want to reiterate some of the principles I've shared with you previously, and you can go to the web YouTube to see some more of that, and that is the principle of strategic time for you. And I love doing this with my clients, helping them see the power of their strategic time, setting 1 hour aside with a journal, a pen, paper, a cup of coffee, cup of tea, away from everything electronic, away from all staff requirements, away from all engagements with family, and do it for you to reflect on the world in which you're living. And the reason why you have a pen and paper and a journal is so you can actually write what's going on in that space, record, reflect. And so this is what we don't often give ourselves time to do or space to do, is engage in that. And so you're debilitated because you're overwhelmed, because you don't give yourself time. And so this conversation, we're talking about being overwhelmed with the dynamic of the world in which you live. I'm helping you today understand, and what I've done in this area here is to give you some context of how I've done that with my clients to help them see uniquenesses. You're unique. So in doing that, we've been talking about being overwhelmed in the whole area of life just is full, business is full, it's demanding from us, and how do we really get a handle on the whole dynamic of time and time management. So I want to talk to you about this section and give you a principle that you know about, but I want to encourage you, if you will engage in this, it will be helpful in many areas and many dynamics of your world. So what could that principle be? I am not a chef. And so my wife will sometimes say to me, John, you know, you really could cook, and, you know, go and get some cooking lessons. And so I want to give you a principle, and that really struggles for me. I want to give you a principle that you can work with today, and not hopefully I've got to get classes and got to figure this out. And that principle is, let me spell the word for you. It is P-R-A-E-T-O, the Pareto principle. So what's that principle? It was an Italian man that helped us understand the dynamic of the 80-20 rule. If you remember it that way, you remember it better to put into practice the 80-20 rule. In short, Pareto found a universal principle that in every economy, in every country, in every time period, some flow, it actually worked the same in all sorts of spaces. About 20% of people invariably control 80% of the wealth. And that happens in all sorts of dynamics. I often have this conversation with my clients. Do you understand the 20% of your products that generate 80% of your income? Do you understand the 20% of your time that delivers 80% of your business? Do you know the 20% of your client base that actually generates 80% of your income? Those kind of dynamics and those questions, we can apply it to many, many areas of our world. And I wonder, have you ever applied this to time management? Have you ever asked yourself the question, what is the 20% of my time that will deliver the 80% of my outcome? Many times we've never ever asked ourselves that question. And we've never measured what we actually do with our time to know where we generate 80% of our output, where that 20% is. Really identify what we are really, really best at to deliver the 80% of outcome. And that's what I want you and I to wrestle with in the dynamic of the world in which we live in. And I want you to think and imagine this. If I figured out my 20% that I delivered 80% of my outcome from, and output and effectiveness from, the other 80% where I'm feeling overwhelmed, what do I do with that? That's a really great question. I'm going to touch on that in a little bit, but firstly, I want you to wrestle with the context. What is my 20% that delivers my 80% of effectiveness? And I'm sure that many of you right now cannot answer that question. I'm sure that there are some of you, you say, yeah, John, this, and this, they're my 20%. And I know when I do that, I'm not overwhelmed. When I do that, I flourish. When I do that, I excel. For me, I've just had a conversation with a consulting company who do consulting in very particular areas, but one of the strategy guys there said, I don't like coaching. Well, I said to him, I love coaching. I know for me that is my 80% output for me. If I put the effort in, I know that's my sweet spot. I resonate there. I love that space. I flourish in that space. Where I know I struggle, and I've done this, I've outsourced to a colleague of mine who's a very good writer. I've got the content, I've given him my content, and we're working together collaboratively how we might translate that content into blogs, because I need some blogs for my website. And he writes, I've got content, we can tweak it together, and I'm so excited about the potential of what that means for me and developing a skill now. Right now, I'm probably a 1 or a 2, but I'm wondering if I could become a 5 or a 6 in my blog writing, getting my colleague to edit them for me, what that could mean for me and my effectiveness. And I know I could develop a skill in that area, but I know where I best resonate, where I'm going to get the best out of me, spending 80% of my time, is that coaching one-on-one with business owners, business leaders. I love it. I get out of those meetings and I am excited, I'm wired, I'm enthusiastic, I'm re-energized, I'm ready for my next opportunity to speak to another client, because that's my sweet spot. So I know I can answer that question, where is my 20% that delivers my 80%? I'm wondering about you, so please don't go to the other side yet. Answer this question and begin to take notes, because here's what happens when we ask a question. Your brain is actually trying to tell you the answer. Immediately I ask that question. It's trying to guide you. It's trying to drop thoughts into your world that you might be aware of and think, you know, Steve, be aware, you do this, this, and this. Immediately those things came to your mind and your thought. They come to you. I wonder whether you actually caught them. Because remember what I said earlier in the conversation, we said more things are caught than taught. And I'm trying to help you with this whole dynamic of being overwhelmed with your time management and bring it to one principle that you can apply today. And you've heard me talk about the power of yes and the power of no. You've heard me talk about change your mind today, all of these wonderful things. And this is the way and where you can actually do something very real in your world to help you do something different and change your mind. It really will become very interesting and very powerful. So here is an exercise. Just imagine tomorrow morning you chart everything that you do and you put a measure against that. Is this my 20% where I get my 80%, or is this my 80% where I should only be spending 20%? That's the simple test. Chart everything and ask yourself those two questions. And if you do that for a week or 2 weeks, every activity that you're involved in, is this my 20% or is this my 80% where I need to be figuring out? My 20% is my sweet spot, where I'm energized, where I'm encouraged, where I'm really the most effective, I'm going to get the most output from that. And I know this because I've done this many, many times with many of my clients. And I love watching their face come alive when they realize, wow, I know this is where I resonate, this is where I excel, this is where I'm going to develop my best and deliver my best for my business and for my organization. And that's what I want you to do. It's not that difficult, it's not that complicated, but it's the world in which you and I live. Remember what we're talking about? Being overwhelmed, that it's all too hard, too much, too difficult. It's not that challenging when we understand there is something I can do about it today. Here's what the difference is. Harvard research, we're dealing with business management. and they asked their graduates to write a business plan. Of the, let's imagine there was 100 in the course, only 3 wrote a business plan. 10 years later, they came back and they asked the question, of those 100 students who actually did that course, what is their wealth? The 3% had more wealth than the 97 who did not write a business plan. Do it today, start the process now, and watch the difference it will actually make in you, for your business, for your future, because I'm here to help you do business better. Here's what takes place if you and I will do this, and that is put this 80-20 rule into your world and take the action that we talked about in the previous section. At the end of that, I asked you to do this. I asked you to record everything that you do and ask yourself those 2 questions. Is this my 20% that will deliver my 80, or is this 80 that's only going to get 20% output? And I want you to be aware, when you've figured out the 80 that will only deliver 20%, you ask a very interesting question and you say, who can I delegate this to? Who can I outsource this to? Who can I automate this with? Who can I hire to take on this responsibility? Who in my staff can I actually give this responsibility to? Because often I will do, when you figure out what that 80 is ask the question, can this be delegated? Can this be automated? Can this be outsourced? And once you see that, you say, oh, I don't need to do this. I really can hand this over, hand this out, and give this up. Because I encourage my clients, and I use 2 circles, and they're intersecting. And the first circle is, on the left-hand side is stop. At the intersection of the 2 circles is stay. And in the other side of the circle on the right-hand side is start. And that's what the dynamic is that you will do when you understand that I'm going to stop doing all of this stuff that is the 80% that only delivers 20% of effectiveness for me, and I'm going to start, I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to delegate it, outsource it. I'm going to hire for that. I'm going to train up my staff that they're going to do that. I'm going to write better job descriptions so they can do that. And it's so much fun, because you might still have to do some of that, but there's a whole bunch in there that you'll be able to give away because you've only got 20% of your time to give to it. And so when you do that, it's really powerful, because it will do this for you. It will give you a great sense of personal happiness, and it will also impact your income for you, for your business, for your staff, and for your future. And you know, we try to figure out, can I ever be happy? When you're not overwhelmed, you will be happier and better, of a joyful person. It will be part of your nature because you're not overwhelmed. Being overwhelmed can be discouraging, despondency, all the kind of negative D's kind of hit you, and you hang around with a long face, and people don't want to be around you. When you are in your sweet spot, you smile more, you're happier, you're more relaxed, you're more intent, you're more focused, you've got greater clarity, your mind is sharper, and people want to be around you because, hey, you are a good dude, you are on the game, you are maybe sometimes the life of the party. You are somebody that encourages and builds and strengthens and affirms and empowers and releases and all those really powerful dynamics, and it creates a greater sense of joy in and around you, in and around your home, your wife. Hey, just imagine, you're not overwhelmed, you go home happy. What difference will that make to your wife and to your children? I know this, sometimes we are not aware the reason why our children struggle and they're upset or they're crying or they're disturbed is because we carry stuff and they pick it up and they read us and they get concerned for us even though they don't know what's really going on. And you wonder why sometimes your children are struggling, because they're a reflection of you. Here's a principle. You know, apples grow on trees, but they don't fall very far. So when an apple drops off a tree, it's not very far from the apple. And our children are our apples that we've dropped from our tree, and they're really close, they reflect us, and they tell an amazing story. I want you to think about what you can do When we do this, it releases a greater sense of joy in and around your world, my world, and everybody else's world that you and I interact with. And I want you to do it today. Not only will you have happiness, but hey, your productivity goes up. Your productivity, because you're focused, you're clear. You're no longer doing a shotgun. And I've got a little conversation that I have with my clients. Don't use shotguns. Be an arrow business. It's really powerful to have arrows in your quiver that you know what they're for. Because a shotgun can have 100, 200 pellets, and you have no idea where they will actually land. But when you've got to pull an arrow out of your quiver and you pull the bow and you point it towards a very certain target, you know what you are aiming at. And so in business, when I'm working with clients, I'm encouraging them to sharpen their focus, be clear about what's going on, and really develop arrows about what it is. And that's what the 80-20 rule will help you do, is you will sharpen, you'll be more deliberate, you'll be more focused, you'll be more productive, you'll be more energized. You know, I love waking up in the morning, figuring out what am I going to do today? Who am I going to talk to? Who am I going to meet? What dynamic is actually going to take place for me? You know, I've done my homework for my workshop I did today with some clients, and it was, this is what they said to me: that went so fast. And we worked for the 2 hours solid. And they know they've now got a very powerful mission statement. They've got some really key work that they know they're going to be doing. And I love that. And I come away from that, whoa, that was really good. And they asked me, how did I feel about it? I want them to know. And they said, we now know we've got a big, hairy, audacious goal to aim at that will lift us, that will lift everybody involved with us. And that really, really is exciting. So you will be happier. Greater joy will be in your world. You will be more productive, and guess what? Your income will be better. Your profitability. And hey, aren't we in business to make money? Money's great. Money is not evil. It's what money does can be evil when we do it in an evil way. But money, wow. And I love companies that actually want to do with their money good. And here's what will help you. Your profit will go up, and some of those dreams inside of you where you want to make a difference, and because you're overwhelmed, it seems to be too hard, too difficult, too much. I've got to take that on. But because you've understood the 80-20 rule, you've applied it to your time management, you're clear about what your sweet spot is, you've got this joy and this happiness, this productivity happening, you're carrying yourself better, your profitability goes up. Wow, what a difference in business. Remember, my motto this year is doing business better. That's what we want to do. That's why we spend this time. I spend this time thinking about this for you. The fact is, if you work this out, the difference it will make. So try this. Create that not to-do list. Put those things on and give them away and watch the difference it makes. Spend some time engaging in this dynamic, and you will not be overwhelmed. You will be happier, joyful, dynamic leader that you want to be, and that dream inside of you will not only be a dream, it will become a reality, and you will do business better. So I want you to subscribe, and I want you to click on that bell, because every week, I'm putting up content for you so you and I can do business better. This is John Hardy from Peak Consultancy. Climb the mountain, see the view.